The Billionaire Tycoon read her name tag. It was his missing sister's name. The crisp October air carried the scent of roasted chestnuts and exhaust fumes through the streets of Manhattan as Marcus Blackwood stepped out of his black Bentley. At 38, he commanded respect in every boardroom from Wall Street to Silicon Valley, his tech empire spanning 3 continents. The weight of his success pressed against his shoulders like an expensive suit. Comfortable, yet suffocating, Mr. Blackwood, your 3 p.m. is waiting, his assistant Sarah announced through his earpiece as he strode toward the towering glass facade of Blackwood Technologies. The building reflected the autumn sky, a monument to everything he'd built since clawing his way out of foster care 25 years ago. Marcus nodded curtly, his steel-gray eyes scanning the busy sidewalk with the calculated precision that had made him billions. Street vendors hawked their wares while office workers clutched coffee cups like lifelines, their faces buried in smartphones. The city's rhythm matched his heartbeat, fast, relentless, unforgiving. Inside the marble lobby, he barely noticed the bustling crowd until something made him pause. A young woman behind the information desk was explaining directions to an elderly tourist, her voice patient and warm. Something about her profile struck him as familiar, though he couldn't place why. "Excuse me," the tourist was saying. "Could you repeat that address?" The woman smiled, tucking a strand of auburn hair behind her ear. "Of course. It's 425 East 58th Street. Take the subway to Lexington Avenue, then walk 2 blocks north." Marcus found himself stepping closer, drawn by an inexplicable pull. The woman's laugh was musical, genuine, a sound rarely heard in his world of calculated conversations and strategic smiles. As she leaned forward to write down the directions, her name tag caught the light. Emma Blackwood. Guest relations, the world tilted. Marcus gripped the edge of a nearby planter, his knuckles white against the cold stone. 23 years of searching, of hiring private investigators, of following dead-end leads across the country. 23 years of wondering if his little sister was alive, safe, happy. Emma. His Emma. She was supposed to be 8 years old, gap-toothed and clutching. A worn teddy bear, not this poised 26-year-old woman with kind eyes and a professional demeanor. Not someone who worked in his own building without him knowing. "Sir, are you all right?" The elderly tourist was looking at him with concern. Marcus straightened, his business mask sliding back into place despite the earthquake happening inside his chest. "Fine, thank you." But he wasn't fine. He was drowning in memories, Emma's hand in his as they were separated at the group home, her tears as she was placed with a different family, his desperate promises that he'd find her someday when he was old enough, strong enough, rich enough. He'd become all of those things. He'd just never imagined she was already here. Emma finished helping the tourist and glanced up, her green eyes, so like their mother's, meeting his briefly. She offered the same warm smile she'd given everyone else, but Marcus saw something flicker across her features. Recognition? Impossible. She'd been too young. "Can I help you with anything, sir?" she asked, her voice professional but tinged with something he couldn't identify. Marcus opened his mouth, but no words came. How do you tell someone you're the brother who failed to keep his promise? How do you explain that you've been looking for them in the wrong places while they were right under your nose? He started, then stopped. The lobby spun around him, mahogany panels, marble floors, the gentle hum of expensive air conditioning, all of it meaningless now. Sarah's voice crackled through his earpiece again. "Mr. Blackwood, your meeting?" He pressed the earpiece to mute it, never breaking eye contact with Emma. She was studying him now, her head tilted slightly to one side, a gesture so familiar it made his chest ache. Do I know you?" she asked quietly, her professional facade cracking just enough to reveal uncertainty. The question hung between them like a bridge. Neither was sure they could cross. In the background, the city continued its relentless pace. But for Marcus, time had stopped entirely. 23 years of searching had led to this moment, and he had no idea what to say. Emma's hand trembled slightly as she adjusted her name tag, the small gesture betraying her composure. She'd felt his stare from across the lobby, intense and searching, as if he were trying to solve a puzzle written in her features. Marcus took a deep breath, the familiar scent of the building's expensive air freshener mixing with something else, a faint trace of the vanilla perfume Emma wore. It was nothing like the strawberry shampoo she'd used as a child, but somehow it fit the woman she'd become. "My name is Marcus Blackwood," he said carefully, watching her face for any reaction. "I own this building." Emma's eyes widened, but not with the recognition he'd hoped for. Instead, he saw professional alarm. "Oh, Mr. Blackwood, I'm so sorry. I didn't realize. Should I have—" No, he interrupted, raising a hand. "You're doing your job perfectly." He paused, studying her face. The shape of her nose, the way her eyebrows drew together when she was thinking, it was all exactly as he'd imagined she'd look grown up. "Emma, I need to ask you something, and I know. It's going to sound strange." She nodded slowly, glancing around the busy lobby. A few people had started to notice their conversation, probably wondering why the notoriously private billionaire was having an extended chat with guest relations. "Do you remember your childhood? Before you were adopted, I mean." The color drained from Emma's face. She gripped the edge of her desk and Marcus saw her knuckles go white, the same way his had moments before. "How do you—" she whispered, then stopped herself. Her voice gained strength. "I'm sorry, Mr. Blackwood, but that's very personal information. I don't see how—" "You had a brother," Marcus pressed on, his voice low and urgent. "Older than you. He promised he'd find you." Emma's breathing quickened. She looked around the lobby again, this time with the expression of someone seeking an escape route. "I think I need to call security." "Emma, please." The desperation in his voice surprised them both. Marcus Blackwood never pleaded, never showed weakness, never let anyone see behind the fortress he'd built around himself. "I know this is insane. I know how it sounds, but I've been looking for you for 23 years. She stared at him, and in that moment he saw the 8-year-old girl who used to curl up next to him during thunderstorms, who'd made him promise to protect her forever. "Marcus?" The name came out as barely a whisper. He nodded, not trusting his voice. Emma sank into her chair, her face pale. This can't be real. Marcus died. They told me he died." "Who told you that?" "The Hendersons, my adoptive parents." Her voice was hollow, distant. "They said you were sick, that you couldn't take care of yourself, let alone me. They said it was better if I forgot about you." The rage that swept through Marcus was cold and calculating, the same fury that had driven him to destroy competitors who'd tried to cheat him in business. But this was different. This was personal. "I never stopped looking," he said. "I hired investigators. I checked every adoption agency, every—" "Henderson," Emma interrupted. "They changed my last name to Henderson, legally. Of course, he'd been searching for Emma Blackwood, not Emma Henderson. 23 years of searching for a name that no longer existed." "Why are you here?" she asked suddenly. "I mean, why this building, this job?" Emma's laugh was bitter. "Ironic, isn't it? I applied because I wanted to work for Blackwood Technologies. I thought if I worked for a company with the same name, maybe I'd feel closer to the brother I lost." Pathetic, right? Marcus felt like he'd been punched in the chest. All this time, she'd been mourning him while he'd been mourning her. All this time, they'd both been looking for each other in their own ways. "Emma," he started, but she held up a hand. "I need time to process this," she said, her voice shaking. This is too much." "Of course. I understand." He pulled out his phone, scrolling to his contact information. "This is my private number. When you're ready to talk, if you're ready to talk, call me." She took the card with unsteady fingers, staring at it as if it might disappear. "Emma," Marcus said softly, "I never stopped being your brother, not for a single day." She looked up at him, tears threatening to spill over. "I dreamed about you. For years I dreamed you'd come find me." "I'm here now," he said simply, but even as the words left his mouth, Marcus wondered if being here was enough. Could they bridge 23 years of separation? Could they become siblings again? Or were they now just strangers who shared a name and a handful of childhood memories? Emma's apartment in Queens was a stark contrast to Marcus's penthouse on the Upper East Side. The cramped one-bedroom space smelled of coffee and the curry her downstairs neighbor cooked every Tuesday evening. She sat at her small kitchen table, Marcus's business card in her hands, staring at the phone number, as if it held the answers to every question that had haunted her for over 2 decades. 3 days had passed since their encounter in the lobby. 3 days of calling in sick to work, of pacing her tiny living room, of trying to reconcile the brother she'd mourned with the billionaire who'd appeared in her life like something out of a fever dream. The Hendersons had been good to her, she reminded herself. Robert and Linda Henderson had given her a stable home, paid for her education, loved her as best they could. But they'd also lied to her, about Marcus, about her past, about why she sometimes woke up screaming from nightmares she couldn't quite remember. Her phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number, but she knew it was him. "I'm outside, if you want to talk. No pressure." Marcus. Emma peered through her window blinds and saw him leaning against a modest Toyota Camry, not the flashy Bentley she'd expected. He wore jeans and a simple sweater, looking more like the older brother from her fragmented memories than the intimidating businessman she'd met. She buzzed him up, her hands shaking as she unlocked the apartment door. Marcus climbed the narrow stairs slowly, taking in the peeling paint and the smell of 100 different dinners cooked in apartments stacked on top of each other. When he reached her door, he paused, suddenly unsure. "Hi," Emma said softly. "Hi." He looked past her into the small apartment. "This is nice." She almost laughed. "It's tiny and the heating barely works, but it's mine. I remember when having a space that was just yours felt like the most important thing in the world," Marcus said. And something in his voice told her he understood more than she'd expected. They sat on her second-hand couch, an awkward distance between them. Emma had made coffee, but neither of them touched their mugs. "I brought something," Marcus said, pulling a manila envelope from his jacket. "Photos. From before." Emma's breath caught as he spread the pictures across her coffee table. There she was at 6, 7, 8 years old, always with a serious-looking boy who had to be Marcus. Christmas morning in some group home, both of them grinning despite the institutional setting. A birthday party where Marcus had fashioned a crown out of newspaper for her. A day at a public pool where he was teaching her to swim. "You kept these?" she whispered. "I stole them," Marcus admitted. "When they separated us, I grabbed everything I could. I've carried them with me ever since." Emma picked up a photo of the two of them reading together, Marcus's arm protectively around her shoulders. "I remember this. You were teaching me to read chapter books. Harry Potter," Marcus said with a small smile. "You were obsessed with Hermione. You said she was smart like me." The memory came flooding back, and with it, a dozen others. Marcus sneaking her extra food when she was hungry. Marcus standing up to older kids who picked on her. Marcus crying when the social worker came to take her away. "They told me you were sick," Emma said suddenly. "The Hendersons. They said you had problems, that you couldn't take care of yourself. They made it sound like you were dangerous." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I was 15 and angry. I'd been bounced around foster homes for years, got into some fights, had trouble in school. But I was never dangerous to you. I know that now." Emma looked at him, really looked at him, and saw the scared teenager he must have been, trying to hold their small family together. "What happened after they took me? I aged out of the system at 18, got a job, then a better job, then started my own company. Every penny I made went into finding you or building something big enough that you'd hear about it if you were looking for me. Blackwood Technologies," Emma said, understanding dawning. "You named it after us, after you. I wanted you to be able to find me." Emma felt tears starting to fall. "I tried, you know. When I turned 18, I tried to find you, but the records were sealed, and I was looking in the wrong state. The Hendersons had moved us to Ohio right after the adoption." They sat in silence for a moment. both absorbed in the weight of missed opportunities and parallel searches. "Why didn't they want me to remember you?" Emma asked finally. Marcus hesitated. "I think they thought it would be easier for you to start fresh. New family, new life, no messy connections to the past. But you were my brother. You were the only family I had." "I know," Marcus said quietly. "But Emma, they gave you things I couldn't. Stability, education, a real home. Maybe they were right." "Don't say that," Emma's voice was fierce. "Don't you dare say that. I grieved for you. I mourned my brother for 23 years. They had no right to take that from me." Marcus looked at her, seeing the strength that had helped her survive, that had brought her back to the Blackwood name even when she didn't consciously know why. "We can't get those years back," he said, "but we're here now. The question is, what do we do with that?" Emma wiped her eyes and looked at the photos spread between them, evidence of a bond that had survived decades of separation and lies. "We start over," she said. "We figure out how to be brother and sister again." The upscale restaurant Marcus had chosen for their second meeting felt like neutral territory, expensive enough to match his world, but intimate enough not to overwhelm Emma. She'd traded her work uniform for a simple black dress, feeling simultaneously overdressed and underdressed as she navigated between tables of people who probably spent more on dinner than she made in a week. Marcus was already there, and she noticed he'd chosen a corner table, away from the main dining room's bustle. He stood when he saw her, a gesture that struck her as both formal and old-fashioned. "You look beautiful," he said, and she caught something in his voice, pride mixed with sadness, as if he were mourning all the occasions he'd missed to tell her that. "Thank you." Emma sat down, acutely aware of the weight of cutlery at her place setting, the crystal glasses, the cloth napkin that probably cost more than her entire outfit. "This is fancy." "Too much?" Marcus asked, genuine concern in his voice. "No, it's fine, just different from what I'm used to." The waiter appeared immediately, deferential in the way service staff became around obvious wealth. Marcus ordered wine without consulting her, then caught himself. "I'm sorry," he said. "I should have asked what you preferred." "It's okay. I don't know much about wine anyway." But it wasn't okay, Emma realized. It was a small thing, but it highlighted the gulf between their experiences. Marcus moved through this world with ease, making decisions based on assumptions about what was normal, while she felt like an imposter. "Tell me about your life," Marcus said once they'd ordered. "The Hendersons, school, everything." Emma found herself relaxing as she talked. She told him about growing up in suburban Cleveland, about Linda Henderson's volunteer work, and Robert's job at the insurance company. She talked about high school theater, her scholarship to Ohio State, her degree in communications that had led to a series of jobs in customer service and public relations. "You moved to New York alone?" Marcus asked. "2 years ago. I wanted to be closer to where we grew up, I think. Even though I couldn't remember much, I felt pulled back." "Here," Marcus nodded. "That makes sense. You always had good instincts." "Did I? I can't remember much about who I was back then." "You were curious about everything, always asking questions, always trying to understand how things worked. And you were brave, braver than me sometimes." Emma smiled. "I don't feel very brave now. Are you kidding? You came to New York alone, made a life for yourself, took a chance on a job at a company that just happened to have your family name. That's incredibly brave." Their food arrived, and Emma was relieved to discover it was recognizable. Grilled salmon, roasted vegetables, nothing that required specialized knowledge to eat properly. Marcus noticed her relief and smiled. "Next time we'll go somewhere more casual," he said. "Next time? If you want there to be a next time." Emma studied, his face seeing uncertainty beneath his successful exterior. This was as new for him as it was for her, she realized. He might have built an empire, but he was as lost as she was when it came to rebuilding their relationship. "I want there to be a next time," she said. "But Marcus, we need to be honest with each other. This is weird." We're strangers who used to be siblings. We can't just pick up where we left off when I was 8. I know, he said quietly. I've been thinking about that. I don't want to overwhelm you or try to force something that isn't there anymore. It's not that it isn't there, Emma said carefully. When I look at you, I see echoes of the brother I remember, but we're different people now. I need to get to know who you are now, not just who you were when I was 8. Marcus leaned back in his chair. Fair enough. What do you want to know? Everything. But let's start with this. Are you happy? The question seemed to catch him off guard. Happy? You have everything anyone could want. Money, success, power. But are you happy? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. I thought I was. I thought success was enough. But now that I've found you, he paused. I realize I've been building all of this for an audience of one. You. And now that you're here, I don't know what to do with it. You don't have to do anything with it, Emma said. It's yours. You earned it. Did I, or did I just get lucky and work hard and refuse to give up? Does it matter? It does to me. Because if I just got lucky, then I don't deserve to have everything. When you've been working customer service jobs and living in a one-bedroom apartment in Queens, Emma set down her fork. Marcus, listen to me. I don't want your money. I don't want you to feel guilty about your success. I want you to be my brother. That's all. How do I do that? I don't remember how to be someone's brother. Neither do I, Emma admitted. But maybe we can figure it out together. Marcus smiled, the first real smile she'd seen from him. I'd like that. They finished dinner talking about smaller things. Emma's job, Marcus's company, their favorite books and movies. The ways New York had changed since their childhood. By the time they left the restaurant, something had shifted between them. They weren't the siblings they'd once been, but they were beginning to become something new. 6 months later, Emma stood in the kitchen of Marcus's penthouse, laughing, as he attempted to flip pancakes with increasing frustration. Sunday morning breakfast had become their tradition, a weekly ritual that felt both new and comfortably familiar. You're supposed to wait until the edges look set, she said, rescuing the spatula from his hands. Like this. She demonstrated with easy grace, flipping the pancake perfectly. Marcus watched with the same intense focus he brought to board meetings, as if learning to make breakfast was as important as any business deal. Show off, he muttered, but he was smiling. The penthouse still felt surreal to Emma. The floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Central Park, the modern art that cost more than most people's houses, the kitchen that was bigger than her entire apartment. But she'd grown comfortable here, in the same way she'd grown comfortable with the brother Marcus had become. He wasn't the boy from her memories, but he wasn't the intimidating billionaire from the tabloids either. He was somewhere in between, brilliant and driven, but also unexpectedly vulnerable, still carrying the protective instincts that had made him stand between her and the world when they were children. I have something to tell you, Marcus said. As they sat down to eat, Emma looked up, pancake halfway to her mouth. Good something or bad something? Good, I think. I hope. He took a breath. I've been working with a private investigator to find out more about what happened with our adoptions. Why we were separated. Why the records were sealed. Emma set down her fork. They'd talked about this before. The questions that had haunted both of them about why their adoption had been handled the way it was. What did you find? The Hendersons specifically requested a child with no living relatives. They wanted a clean slate adoption. When they learned about me, they almost backed out. The agency convinced them to go through with it by agreeing to seal the records and tell you I was dead. Emma felt the familiar anger rise in her chest. So it was all planned. The lies, the separation, everything. Emma, Marcus said gently, they loved you. Whatever else they did wrong, they loved you and gave you a good life. I know that. But they stole 23 years from us, Marcus. 23 years. I know. But we can't get those years back. We can only decide what to do with the ones we have left. Emma looked out the window at the city spread below them. From this height, the people looked like toys, the cars like moving dots. It was a perspective that put things in context. Some problems were too big to solve, but that didn't mean you stopped trying to solve the ones you could. "I've been thinking about something," she said. "About my job." Marcus had been trying to convince her to quit her position at guest relations and join the company in a more senior role, but she'd resisted. She didn't want to be seen as the boss's sister, didn't want to be handed opportunities she hadn't earned. "I want to start a foundation," she continued, "for kids aging out of foster care, help them with job training, education, housing assistance, all the things that might have made things easier for you." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "That's a wonderful idea. I want to fund it properly, not just enough to feel good about ourselves, but enough to actually make a difference, which means I need to ask you for help." "Of course, whatever you need." "A lot of money, Marcus, more money than you've probably ever given away at once," he smiled. "Emma, I'm worth more than some small countries. Whatever you need for this foundation, it's not even a rounding error in my net worth. $50 million, Marcus didn't even blink. "To start?" Emma stared at him. "You're serious?" "Dead serious. In fact, let's make it $100 million. We can call it the Blackwood Foundation." "Just like that?" "Just like that." Marcus reached across the table and took her hand. "Emma, I spent 23 years building wealth so I could find you and take care of you. Now that I have you back, what's the point of having all this money if I don't use it for something that matters to you?" Emma felt tears prick her eyes. "You know this means we'll be working together, closely. Are you ready for that?" "Are you kidding? I've been waiting my whole life to have my sister as a business partner. Even if I disagree with you, even if I think some of your ideas are terrible." "Especially then," Marcus said. "I've been surrounded by yes men for too long. I need someone who'll tell me when I'm being an idiot." "Oh, I can definitely do that." They finished breakfast talking about the foundation, the programs they wanted to create, the staff they'd need to hire, the kids they hoped to help. As they talked, Emma realized that this was what she'd been searching for without knowing it. Not just her brother, but a purpose that connected her past to her future. Later, as she prepared to leave for her apartment in Queens, Marcus stopped her at the door. "Emma, thank you." "For what?" "For letting me be your brother again, for giving us a chance to figure this out." Emma hugged him, and for a moment, she could feel the scared 15-year-old who'd promised to find her, and the 8-year-old who'd believed he would. "Thank you for never stopping looking," she whispered. As she rode the subway back to Queens, Emma reflected on how much had changed in 6 months. She'd found her brother, but more than that, she'd found her purpose. The Blackwood Foundation would help other kids avoid the separation and confusion that had marked their own lives. It wouldn't erase the past, but it might help create better futures. Her phone buzzed with a text from Marcus. "Foundation board meeting next Sunday? I'll make pancakes." Emma smiled and typed back, "I'll bring the syrup. And don't burn them this time." Outside the subway window, the city rushed past, millions of people with their own stories of loss and finding, separation and reunion. But for the first time in 23 years, Emma felt like she was exactly where she belonged.